This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Zero Procure. The guys at Zero Procure have walked a mile in the shoes of many of our listeners from the world of hospitality. In fact, they have over 70 years of collective experience of working in the hospitality industry, and that'll probably be me getting into trouble for making them feel old. I really recommend speaking to them to ensure you're working with the right suppliers at the right price. There's zero cost involved. Just click on their link in the show notes or visit their site at zeroprocure.com/podcast. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Olajide Alabi, Equality, Inclusion and Wellbeing Partner at Turtle Bay Restaurants and co-founder of SISU. Coming up on today's show, Olajide shares the original lyrics to a Craig David classic.
I called him on the Monday, had an interview on the Tuesday and got off the job on the Friday.
Phil thinks he recognises Olajide from somewhere before. Oh, you're the Wetherspoons toilet guy. And Olajide presses pause on himself.
Which is hard.
All that and so much more as we chat through Olajide's story and journey to date. As someone who's making a name for themselves in the equality and wellbeing space, you won't be surprised to hear that we talk about that a lot. But more than that, Olajide's story is jam-packed full of fun from the start to finish. He's without doubt one of hospitality's great characters, and we are so lucky to have him. Thanks so much, Olajide. We're here each week telling the stories of the amazing people within hospitality, so please don't forget to give us a like, share and a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening. It really does make a huge difference. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to another episode of Hospitality Meets with me, your host, Phil Street. So I've known today's guest for a couple of years now, and he was part of the team that brought Hospitality Aid to the world back in 2020. Remember that? And at the time, he was recruitment manager at Gourmet Burger Kitchen. Now, he has one of the best job titles going as Equality, Inclusion and Wellbeing Partner at Turtle Bay Restaurants, whilst also being the co-founder of SISU. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Is that all right? That'll do.
Yeah.
Which is an equality, equity, inclusion and wellbeing consultancy. I've no idea why it took me so long to invite you on the show, but a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Olajide Alabi.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm so glad to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me. And yeah, I'm so glad to be here finally on the show, the Hospitality Meets, eh?
The show. Yeah, I like that. That's going in the intro
show.
for sure. Yeah. How are you anyway?
I am good, thank you. I am. I don't know why I changed from a vest into this top because I just, I was like, a podcast. I want to dress up for the podcast. And now I'm regretting it because it is hot, but it's 30 something degrees now in London, and we are living through what is our own problem that we've created. We won't go into that, but we've created this problem that is a heat wave.
Indeed, that's definitely a podcast for another topic for another podcast. But I hear you, and let it be known for the record that it wasn't me that brought up the weather today. So that's all on you this time. It's normally me that talks about the weather. It's a typically British thing to do, isn't it? To break the ice and just chew the fat. But I hear you on it is hot. The people who are listening to this are not going to see it, but over the course of our conversation, my forehead is going to get increasingly shiny, I think. But anyway,
I'm so pleased that I get to see the shiny forehead. No one else. Yeah.
One day this might see the light of day in video terms, but anyway, we'll get there. But yeah, where are you today? Anyway, where are you recording?
So I'm recording from my home in Bushey, which is just outside of London, just north of London.
Great stuff. Excellent. And no air conditioning, I assume.
And no air conditioning. Well, it's ordered and it's on its way. It's going to be here tomorrow, my air conditioning. I'm so excited.
Great. And then you'll get 2 days of being able to use it, and then it'll go to being 21 degrees again.
Oh, thanks for that, Phil. Pop in my cloud and my bubble.
Yeah.
Cheers.
It's all right. We're going to get this weather every year for the rest of time, aren't we? So you're going to get used out of it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Anyway, and that's absolutely enough about the weather. You're here for a reason, of course, which is to talk about your journey and your story. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of your career. How did you get into hospitality in the first place?
Oh, wow. So I was 15 and back in the day when you're 15, I don't even know if they still do this now, but when you were 15, you used to do like a work experience.
Yeah.
And I already had a fond relationship with food, and I loved eating. And I've come from a family of caterers, so I really wanted to do something in a restaurant. So I had a work experience at TGI Fridays in Watford. Pick up the TGI Friday Massive, thank you. Um,
Having a bit of a rebirth. I just had the chief exec on a few weeks ago, and yeah, they're I suppose they're regrouping and going again. That's basically
Yeah,
the
they are. They are, which is I think is cool because when I did my work experience there at 15, I thought I'd found a home that I could see myself working in forever. It was just so fun. It was vibrant. It was back in the day when they had the white and red stripes, and you had the braces and all the buttons. It was just a really fun environment to be in, and it was full of loads of different types of people from all walks of life, expressing themselves in their own quirky ways, which I absolutely loved. And I guess that was the start of my journey. And after my work experience, I then got a job there part-time as a busser, which I don't know if they still call it a busser now, but they're basically people that used to just, clear the tables, reset the tables. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And that was the start for me, I guess. And from there on I've actually worked at TGI for many, many years in Watford and in Leeds, and then worked for a couple of other restaurant brands in the Watford area, and then actually moved into hotels for a little while as well because...
Did you? I never knew that.
Yeah. The Grove was opposite my mum and dad's house, and I went and worked in meeting and events and was like a bartender for the events side and saw many, many cool events, many weddings, and actually met a lot of my friends that I'm still friends with now. We all worked there together, so it became like a bit of like I guess, an after-school club for us. We all went to college together, finished college, and then went to the Grove and worked till like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then went home. It was just like this weird cycle for 2 years of working at the Grove and seeing really cool events and drinking and having fun. And I guess that's where I decided that, I knew this was home. Like I was nowhere I was going to ever leave hospitality or that service side industry. I couldn't see myself doing anything like law or medicine or anything like that. So when I went to university, I went and studied events management because I was obsessed with parties and having a good time and having a laugh. So I thought, what best degree could I do? I'm going to do a degree on how to plan a party. And I went to university and studied events management for 4 years. And I worked in so many different bars, restaurants. I actually worked in a call centre for a small amount of time for Sky, mainly because it paid an awful lot of money at the time. And as a student, if you get paid more than like £9 an hour, I think at the time, you were literally like, oh my God, I'm
You're rich.
in.
Yeah,
I'm so rich.
Absolutely. How did you find that experience in terms of the call centre? Because was it an outbound or inbound?
It was an inbound call centre for customer services, and I'm not going to lie, it was probably hell on earth. It was people calling up to tell me that their Sky had stopped working, or that they wanted to upgrade, or their movie channel wasn't connecting. It was just like really mundane phone calls that you would sit there in this room, and you would feel like the world had stopped around you and you were stuck in this vacuum of weirdness.
Right.
And your shift was like six hours long. I think it used to start at 4 and finish at 10 or something like that. And it was just felt like a long shift of just annoying calls. And what I remember trying to do is you'd try and dodge the calls. You put yourself on like unavailable for like the amount of time you're allowed, and then you'd jump back on and jump back off. It was like a little dodgems game of trying not to actually answer the phone.
Yeah.
But it was fun because we all were young, we all were students. So actually, again, you met loads of different people from different walks of life. And you'll start to see within my theme here of my career that I liked being around different types of people. Right. And that was like, it fed my soul. It also made me learn a lot from different people because I'm quite inquisitive, so I'd ask loads of questions. So it was nice to be around different people.
It's a different experience as well, though, isn't it? Like it gives you don't really probably appreciate it at the time, but it's giving you something that you probably weren't aware of at the time. It's all part of the rich tapestry of life's experience.
Exactly. I think actually, when I look back, it helped me being able to deal with with complaints, because obviously a lot of the calls were dealing with complaints and keeping customers calm, and letting them leave the conversation being happy, feeling happy, and so actually when I think about when I then left there to become a manager in a restaurant, I think it really helped me and gave me like a good grounding in terms of how to deal with guest complaints.
Yeah.
Not that not that I got loads, but it's always good to know.
Yeah.
So I left the Sky and went to work in a restaurant that was just opened in Leeds, and it was I can't remember, Ego. It was called Ego
Okay.
Restaurant, Mediterranean restaurant, opened in Leeds, and it was nice to do like a new site opening, so it was brand new, so I did all the training at the beginning, and I guess that was my first experience of an NSO, and absolutely loved it. Like, the team was great, the management team was amazing, we all got on and bonded really well. And we did an amazing opening, and I worked there for the last year of university, and I got promoted to an assistant manager, and I didn't want to leave. I was like, graduated with a degree. My parents came to graduation, and I remember telling them, going, I'm not coming home. I'm staying in Leeds, and I'm working at Ego Restaurant. I love it here, and I'm going to be the next general manager. And my parents going, well, what about your degree? What about all that money you've just spent? And I was just like, no, I'm staying in Leeds and being a manager at Ego Restaurants. Needless to say, that did not happen. Right. I found out on the grapevine that restaurant was going to be closing soon. I luckily had a really good connection with the general manager there, and he put me in contact with the team at the restaurant group. And he was like, go and do the MIT course with the restaurant group. It's really good. It's really detailed. You'll learn a lot. It'll make you more rounded as a manager, and you'll probably find a better restaurant to work in London than you would here in Leeds.
Yeah.
And you'll get paid more. So I was like, okay, fine. So I came back to London, went to work for the restaurant group, and I got given Frankie and Benny's for my life. I was very, very not the kind of brand that I saw myself working for, but I made it work, and I went and did the MIT program with Frankie and Benny's, and it was detailed. You learned so much about managing a restaurant, from doing rotas to back of house to front of house to everything from your P&L and stuff. So it was a really nice rounded management training program, and then I was finally placed in Frankie and Benny's in Watford, again with so many young people from different walks of life. And as a manager, this you learn how to, I guess, change the way that you communicate with different types of people. You had the young people that didn't really care about being at work or even turning up to work. Yeah. And then you had some slightly older team who really cared and took a lot of respect and time. And actually, again, rounded me as a person and as a manager, being able to deal with different types of people. But I didn't last very long, unfortunately. It just wasn't for me. I realised that I think it was more the brand wasn't for me. We had a lot of complaints. It was a voucher life. It was like the time where vouchers were every day. You'd get someone coming in with different vouchers, and it was discounted. It was really fast paced, and it just wasn't the sort of atmosphere that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I got headhunted to go and work for Blue Arrow in recruitment on a bad shift that I had. And I went and...
It's funny how the bad shifts can be the catalyst to your next move, right?
It was a terrible Sunday, and I remember my team had let me down, and I was running the bar, and I was running the pass, and I was, all over the shop. I was sweating, and someone came up to the bar and was like, "Ever fancied working in recruitment?" And I was like, "No. Why would you ask me that question?"
Yeah.
And needless to say, after cashing up at the end of the day at 2 a.m, and looking down on my table and seeing the business card, I called him on the Monday, had an interview on the Tuesday, and got offered the job on the Friday. And
that sounds like a Craig David song. But yeah, we'll fill in the own blanks in that. That's we'll write our own lyrics around that. But yes, no, fair play. I think that's the that's actually a little bit how I got into recruitment as well. Actually, I've just obviously stayed there since then. But it wasn't necessarily a bad shift, but I was going into work at 6 o'clock in the morning and covering people who were not turning up to work and making coffees and things like that. And then I would be still there at 3 o'clock in the morning looking after directors' dinners and things like that. And I just remember thinking, is this it? There's got to be more than basically just firefighting my whole life around, And I was a much younger person, and I definitely didn't have the leadership skills at that point in time. But it was definitely the thing that made me go. And I had chance conversation with somebody in recruitment, and they said, "Oh, you'd be great at that." And here we are, 17 years later. So it can be the catalyst to your next move.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really didn't like being, I think I was 23, 24, maybe 25, was that I wasn't seeing any of my friends. All my friends were going out, clubbing, raving, traveling. And, hospitality means you're working in the evenings, you're working weekends. I just felt like I had such huge FOMO. And that was one of the biggest catalysts for me moving away, was that I just really missed growing up with my friends and experiencing the stuff that everyone else was experiencing. And also I took a look in the mirror and I just didn't like what I saw. I'd put on a lot of weight, I was eating badly, I just wasn't having a healthy lifestyle because, again, at that time, you were working 70, 80 hours, you were eating badly, you were doing doubles, you were doing AFDs. I know that's still a thing people still do now, but not as common. And it just was
for those who are listening to this and don't know what that stands for. Would you care to enlighten?
An AFD is an all fucking day shift, which means you literally open and you close. It is a well-known thing in hospitality, unfortunately, but I think a lot of brands are moving away from it.
Yeah.
But it was a very everyday sort of everything. You would do like at least two a week back in when I was at Frankie and Benny's days. And so yeah, I took the leap into recruitment, even though I had a lot of friends working in recruitment, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not a salesperson. I can't sell my soul. And I did it. I sold my soul to Blue Arrow. And I remember being told that I was going to be working in Enfield. And at the time I lived in Watford. And I was like, where is Enfield? Number one. And number two, how am I going to get there? So I'd literally taken the leap without even asking where the location was meant to be. And again, I went to go work in Blue Arrow. I was covering the chef desk, temp chef desk, with no experience, no training.
Gosh,
I was thrown into the deep end, and I was told I was starting a warm desk. And needless to say, when I started, it was stone cold. It was frozen,
freezing cold.
They had not had chefs for a long time out of that branch, and so yeah, I had to build a new desk. And I hadn't had any training, I hadn't had any support, and I kind of was thrown into the deep end. And I remember my manager at the time saying to me, if you don't fucking sort this out and get some sales in, you are out. And I remember him being really quite aggressive with it. And I remember going home and telling my mum and dad, and telling my mum, and my mum was like, you don't have to be there, And I was like, I do. And I think this is the start of me having to prove myself, where I just always felt like I have to prove myself. And this is probably the start of it, was, I was like, I'm going to prove to him that I can do it, because I don't think he had any faith that I could do it. Right. So I did.
Excellent response, and mentally being kind of coming to that conclusion that, I mean, this is you, I suppose, beginning to build resilience.
Yeah, that was it. It was literally, I think that was the first time that I had someone think that I wasn't capable of doing something in the workspace. I'd previously had that sort of experience, I guess, at school, and I guess it was the first time in a working environment where, especially when I was out of my comfort zone, because I'd previously worked, in restaurants, in hotels, where I knew what I was doing, and I felt really comfortable, and this was really out of my comfort zone. So yeah, I really wanted to prove to him that I could do it, just so I could stick my middle finger up at him, and I did.
Yeah.
I somehow managed to do it. And the way I did it was that I tapped into care homes, which was a really bizarre way of doing it. But I found that there was a lot of care homes in the local area that needed chefs, especially temporary chefs. So I tapped into that market. And as soon as I found like a couple, I was like, right, this is it. I'm in the money. And I went out to all the care homes and I created like a care home package. And care homes was my thing. And that's how my career in recruitment started, through care homes. Which is quite funny, because my dad now owns a care agency. It's 360 there.
Yeah. You're mentoring your father.
So yeah, that was my taste into recruitment. I did Blue Arrow for a long time. I think it was nearly 4 years. I did chefs. I did front of house. I did events. I moved into perm for a little bit and did permanent. I did cleaning. I did office. I literally did everything that you possibly could do, nearly, within Blue Arrow. And I guess my biggest contract at Blue Arrow was working with the DLR, which we won back the contract, and that was like I was then known as a DLR guy, and I was providing cleaners for the DLR trains, and it was probably like during it was probably like 40 cleaners a day, and in the winter it would go up to like 100, and I was like supplying the deal. I was a sole supplier. It was at the time I felt like I was the Don. I was literally sitting at my desk and I was like, right, I need 100 cleaners, and I'd call all the bureau offices in London. I'd be like, I need 100 cleaners. I need you all to support me. It was really fun, but it was also really tiring because I was working again silly hours. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoy working hard, and I realised that I love being challenged. So I also pick up contracts that I knew would be really difficult to fill because I like to challenge myself. And eventually, I got bored of being challenged and not being paid enough. So I decided to go and look for more money, which is not always the best option, children. Okay,
Yeah.
going out and looking for more
Listen,
money doesn't mean you're going to have more fun.
listen to your uncle Olajide. Yes, you're right. But equally, there is a balance to be struck, right? That's the thing. I mean, the money from a motivational perspective, actually, a lot of people think that it's the main driver, and maybe in a world where costs are rising everywhere, it goes a little bit higher up the chain. But actually, it's down at number 5 or 6, and actually, what really drives people, unless you're a money hungry salesperson, and that's all they care about, as you say,
Yeah,
they'll sell their soul for a pound. But yeah.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You got different types of people, and I realised that I wasn't well. From doing this role that I then moved into, I realised I wasn't a money person because I moved into do recruitment for doctors. So I worked in temporary doctor recruitment, so for
Right.
consultants and registrars in hospitals, and I particularly covered A&E. And it was a really cool, young, vibrant recruitment agency based in Ealing, and it was new, it was different. It was like me having to learn the lingo of the medical world, moving completely away from my comfort zone again. But it was more money. It was a lot more money, and the commission was great, and it was a great working environment, and they went out loads, and it was young. But I quickly realised that I was so out of my comfort zone. I was so like, it wasn't my people. They weren't my people. And it's interesting
Yeah.
because as soon as you go and try something different, where you're not surrounded by people that are what you're used to, who you're used to talking to. So like when I was doing recruitment for hospitality for Blue Arrow, I could talk to them about my previous experiences. I could talk to them about, I could use the lingo and the language, and I understood the work. Whereas when I was talking to a doctor who was working in A&E in Hammersmith Hospital, I had nothing to talk to him about. I used to go home and read medical journals just so I could have a conversation with the doctors around
Right.
something
Yeah.
that was going on that was within their world, and it didn't flow. It just wasn't me. I wasn't a medical professional.
100% relate. 100%. Because I had in the 2008-9 downturn, I lost my job at Portfolio International at the time because, quite frankly, and I've written about this before, I just wasn't good enough at the job that I was doing, because back then it was everything came easy. You didn't have to be a front foot recruiter. It was, the phone was off the hook with requests for people, so it was just about maneuvering the people. But when that dries up, you get found out very quickly. And I joined a local accounting recruitment firm to where I was living at the time, and they taught me the hard skills of recruitment, but it was basically accountancy across all sectors. And whilst I do financial recruitment now within hospitality, it's a much different ballgame when you know the business. I was going into construction companies and medical companies and retail companies, not knowing anything about the specifics or the nuanced difference. But the thing for me was learning the hard skills, learning the stuff that nobody had ever taught me about actual, how to be a front foot recruiter. So I thank them to the hilt for that experience. But I hated the other element of the job in terms of just trying to relate to something I didn't really relate to.
Yeah, I think it's really quite difficult, I guess, and also once you know where you're meant to be, it's really difficult to then try and go against the grain of
Yeah.
what you're destined to be in. And I realised very quickly I was destined to stay within within the hospitality sector. So I jumped right back into hospitality recruitment and did permanent recruitment with Berkeley Scott, and then decided that I was done with agency and wanted to go internal. So took a role with JD Wetherspoon as an internal recruiter for them, where I was for nearly again 4 years and progressed up the ladder, I guess. And that was probably where I learned the most about myself and about, again, endurance, because I started with a team of 3. And I think by the time I left, it was a point where I was on my own recruiting for the whole of Wetherspoons. And just for context, that's 985 pubs and restaurants and hotels on your own. Which is hard.
Character building. It's character building. That's what
it's character building. And it tested me, and it really tested me. And also, it was the first place where I kind of got a taste of, you know, the power of diversity and inclusion, and you know, I guess why it's so important. You know, Wetherspoons is a really diverse place to work, but don't necessarily shout about their diversity as much as they probably should. And I guess I started working on, you know, trying to shout about it a bit more. And I was able to lead on some really cool campaigns and projects. And one of them being that we completely wanted to change the way that we use social media to recruit. And we started a whole campaign on social and LinkedIn. We changed our, recruitment Slag Line, and we worked Slag Line. What's a Slag Line?
Slag
slogan.
Yeah, you're making up your own terms now. That's brilliant. That might be the best moment of the season, right there.
We came up with a new slogan. We worked on our EVP, and it was something that they hadn't done before, and actually really capturing what it was to be working at Wetherspoons and what it meant to people, and why people would want to come and work there was really important. And then we finally did a visual campaign, to make sure that there was more diversity on our adverts, and actually I ended up then being the face of the diversity, unfortunately, because and this is probably one of my biggest achievements in life, is that, we did a photo shoot in Birmingham and no one turned up. We had loads of people due to turn up and no one turned up. And I remember one of our directors was there, and Tim was due to come as well. And I was basically shitting myself. And I was like, fuck, I've got no one to take pictures. Had to run into Birmingham city centre, into our pubs, and just grab people to come and take pictures. None of them were briefed properly, so they just all turned up and were staring at the camera. And I was like, no, you need to move around. And so I had to jump in the camera and help them, show them what to do, and show them how to take photos. And anyway, the photos all came back, and I remember presenting it back and asking which ones he wanted to pick in the team. And they were like, all the pictures are crap apart from the ones with you in it, Olajide. And I was like, no, I am not being the poster boy for Wetherspoons. I'm just not. Sorry. And Tim came in and selected that one as well, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm being the poster for Wetherspoons. And it ended up going on not only on our posters in every pub and in the toilets, but also on every lorry that went out from Wetherspoons. So on the back of all the delivery lorries, which I think there's probably about 400 lorries maybe out and around in the country, you'll see my face.
Fantastic. Yeah, you must have been very proud.
I was livid. I was literally livid. I was like, oh my God. I mean, people were literally sending me messages on a daily basis with my face on the toilet or my face on the back of the lorry. Want a job? Come and work for Wetherspoons. It was probably the biggest achievement and also my biggest regret.
And were people branding you? You're the Wetherspoons toilet guy.
You're the Wetherspoons guy. Oh my God, I've seen you before. Oh yeah, in Wetherspoons. Yeah. I was that person. So yeah, that was Wetherspoons, and I learned, like I said, I learned so much, and I think I learned about how to influence leaders within a business. Also learn that there's times where you go into certain spaces where people don't know how to handle you as a person, or don't really know how to take you. And I'm serious. I'm a serious person, but I'm also I like to have fun. I like to have a laugh. I think it's really important to go into work and enjoy what you do.
For sure.
And so I have a very distinctive laugh, I guess. And I think people sometimes find my laugh either annoying or funny. And I guess in the environment of Wetherspoons, people struggle to understand where I sat, or kind of, I don't get him. Is he taking the piss, or is he doing his
Right.
job? It took a while for people to get me, and I guess I really realized at that point that I'm not going to try and fit into a stereotype or fit into a mold that's been created for me. I'm going to just be myself,
Yeah.
because that's how I've always done. When I worked in hospitality, I'm not going to change that now because I'm in an office. So I that was where I really learned that I'm going to turn up as my authentic self rather than turning up as what you think I should turn up as.
It's a big moment, that though, isn't it? When it happens, when you have this realization that, why am I trying to be someone for the sake of someone else? Like, and I'm not being true to myself. And actually, that's the most important thing, because that's then when people really connect with you properly. That's when you know that you're in the wrong space to be your authentic self. And there's so many amazing things come to you on the back of when you have that kind of epiphany.
Yeah, I mean, it really brought me a lot of confidence, because I was actually on a 6-month contract, maternity contract, when I started, and I remember that was one of the first things that I got in one of my feedbacks was, you really need you to just quieten down a bit. You don't be so loud. You don't need to be heard all the time. And I just remember the feedback was just basically trying to mute me and make me smaller. And I decided to just not listen to the feedback. And then they extended my contract and made me permanent. So I was like, well, clearly it worked. And then my results, proved the work that I did there for 4 years proved that I was able to do it. And when I left, I looked back and went, I've done some really great things here, and I'm really happy with what I've done and what I've achieved, and I can't achieve anything else here, so I'm going to move on to something else. And I think that was really nice. That was a really nice part of my career where I was like, I've done some incredible things that I would never be able to do anywhere else, because I've never been given that budget to do that. And I'm so glad I've done that at Wetherspoons. And it was a lot of people, when I started there, a lot of people were like, why are you working for Wetherspoons? And I was like, because I think I can do a lot here. And I did. So that was a really nice time, I guess, in my career. And I always look back at it as some of the best and probably the most difficult times of my career. And then I moved on to Gourmet Burger Kitchen, which was as a recruitment manager. And I guess that was, I wanted to move into something a bit smaller. I didn't want
I can't imagine why.
I was like, I've done this big company. I wanted something a bit smaller and a bit easier. And
maybe with a team to help you.
Well, that's it. I was going in thinking that I was going to have a team, Phil, and sometimes you get promised the world and you don't always get delivered that world. But I did get a team member for a short period of time. I think it was 6 months. And then he left, but we didn't replace. But Gourmet Burger Kitchen was a really nice place to work, because again, it was full of great people, and it was nice because I felt like I was able to get back into the restaurants, because at Wetherspoons you don't really get to leave the office much. Unfortunately, you're very office based. And so it was nice to be able to get back into the restaurants and get back to talking to the frontline staff, get back to, even working in the restaurants again. It was just so nice to feel connected again, back to the industry.
Yeah, and that sounds like that's kind of a major part of your makeup as well. Like I'm getting the feel through your career so far to that point is that, people and bonding and team and all of that sounds massively important to you. And then to get the opportunity where you're not kind of, I suppose, just sat on your own in an office doing your thing, but actually you're getting out and about and you're surrounded by people again and getting to absorb the energy of the business and all of that make a massive difference as a recruiter.
Huge difference. And also, GBK really wanted to do something around diversity and inclusion as well. And that was a big sell for me. Was like, I realised that from doing the work at Wetherspoons, that was definitely something that interested me. And I really felt like, as a hospitality sector, we needed to do more, because although I've had some really great experiences within the sector, because it's full of diversity, I have not necessarily always felt like I've been included in things or been had a sense of belonging, or even had the people speaking to me with the right language. And so I realised that the hospitality sector potentially has ticked a box in diversity, but really needs to work more on the inclusion part.
Right. Yeah.
It was nice to be able to do something around that at GBK, and unfortunately that all got put to a halt when the panorama happened. Good old COVID. Really fucked those plans up. I had big plans, big plans with
Well,
D and
actually, do you know what? There's your slag line for the pandemic. It really fucked up all our plans, basically. Yeah, and I don't, I don't think I've ever sworn on. Oh no, I swore once on this show. So once again, I apologize to my mum because I'm sure she listens to them all. But anyway, there we are. But yes, what a great way to summarize what a really horrible time that was for everyone.
Yeah,
notwithstanding the health issues and all of that, but actually, just what it did for everybody's plans.
It really did mess up my plans, to say the least. And I think what then happened after that was probably, I never look back and think, oh, that was, I regret that or anything. I never think that was all meant to happen. But it gave me particularly the time to think. I was put on furlough for a bit and then off furlough, and then I was made redundant. So, it gave me so much time to think about what do I actually really want to do, and do I want to go back into recruitment? And me and my business partner Louisa had been sitting around. She's also one of my best friends. Had been sitting around talking about setting up this business around diversity, inclusion, equity, equality, and well-being, and about going out into businesses and really focusing on and giving them the tools to be able to communicate with each other better, but also make sure they have this sense of belonging in the workplace. Because we both had experienced, I guess, exclusion and not feeling a sense of belonging in certain places. And also, I'd within my career, I've seen homophobia, I've seen racism, I've seen misogyny. I've seen a lot, and I've experienced a lot. And I was like, I don't want to see young people coming into workplaces and experiencing this, in the future. I really want to see a change in the workplace. And so we'd already scribbled down on the back of a fag packet, as you do.
Yeah. And that's where all the best businesses start there.
All the best. It was actually in the fence in Farringdon. I remember the day. And we had several bottles actually of red wine. And we've already done this quite a long time ago. And we were meant to launch it a year or two before, but we didn't. And so having the time to think about it during lockdown was perfect. And then Black Lives Matter happened and the murder of George Floyd. And I literally had this awakening, and I said to Louisa, if we do not do this now, we'll never do it. And if we don't do it now, then if we do it now, I think it'll blow up. I think we'll do well. And so we launched it. We registered our business. We went live on the 4th of July in 2020, and just like that, everyone was calling. How do we speak to our Black colleagues? How do we communicate to our Black teams? How do we make sure everyone's okay? How do we do some training on anti-racism? And we just really exploded, and it was great. And it was so lucky because a lot of the contacts came through the hospitality sector, because obviously that's where most of my connections are.
Yeah.
So we worked with a few brands, and it was just nice. It was nice because it kind of kept me busy during lockdown. Coming together with Louisa and rolling out training for businesses, across different sectors, not just hospitality. We did medical, we did health and fitness, and there was training ranging from like how to be an anti-racist to what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean. And it was all virtual as well, because obviously we're in the virtual world. And again, that's not how we envisaged our business to even have launched. We always envisaged it to be face to face. So we had to then really think about how do we do this virtually and make sure it's engaging. And it was just a really interesting time to launch a business. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It was incredible, and it was incredible that we had to learn so much stuff about how to manage a business, how do you manage accounts. And I remember Louisa and I trying to do that all ourselves, and we were like, and I got to a point and I was like, I can't do this. We need an accountant. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I can't do a profit and loss account. I just can't work this spreadsheet. And learning that sometimes you need to get people in to help with certain aspects of your business. Otherwise the business can't grow. And then I guess the world started going back, and I needed a job. And the team at Harry took me in, which was great. Did a short stint with Harry doing some training for them. did stuff around diversity and inclusion as well, and equality and equity. Did a lot of work internally with them, and did a lot of training with some of their clients, which was fantastic. And whilst also still running SISU, but as you know, for many people out there who know about starting your own business, it's a slow start sometimes. Sometimes you get a massive boost at the beginning, and then it kind of plateaus for a bit. And with this work, it takes a lot of time for a lot of businesses to get the buy-in, I guess, from their leaders, and to get the sign-off for the money for the things to happen. So a lot of the time we had like 10 or 15 inquiries out at one time, and proposals, and we were pitching everywhere, but don't necessarily not getting the comeback or the tick to kind of move things forward. So I needed to have a job basically to pay the bills, the increasing bills.
Yeah.
And so it was nice that Harry took me in, and it was so nice to work with them, because I've known them, a lot of them, for years within my career, and that was fantastic. And I really enjoyed working with them.
Well, they're all action and all energy as well, aren't they? I mean, they're from certainly from the outside looking in, they're just relentless.
They are hardworking people. They are fun and hardworking, which I love, because it's like they work ridiculously hard, and then they play even harder.
Yeah.
And it's just like working with your best mates. I had so much fun, and everyone that works there they're all really good people. They all come from industry, and I've met some great people there, and they will always hold a piece of my heart, because I've known them all for years. And if they called me up and said they needed me to do something for them, I would always help them out. And they've always supported SISU as well, which is great.
Yeah.
And then I got offered an opportunity to go and work with Turtle Bay. SISU had actually done some training with Turtle Bay, post Black Lives Matter, and they were like, well, can you come and do this for us full time, in-house? And I was like, do I want to do this? Because it's going to take a lot of my time. Am I going to be able to focus on SISU? But I took the leap, because I was like, do you know what? This is an opportunity to. Turtle Bay, for those who don't know, is a Caribbean-inspired restaurant that we have about 45, 46 restaurants in the UK. It is, I'm going to be blunt, it is a Caribbean restaurant owned by a Sri Lankan, run by, white men.
Yeah.
And so, to just put it bluntly, and so that brings itself an element of criticism, I guess, especially from the Caribbean community, especially from Black people looking inwards, going, well, you're appropriating our culture. And so for me, that when I was talking to Nick, the CEO, about Turtle Bay, and I went for a coffee with him, I was like, that challenge, and again, this is me looking for a challenge. I love a challenge. I was like, there is a way to make this better. There is a way to flip it, and to make sure that you're not appropriating culture, and to make sure that you are giving back to the communities, and that you're training your teams on how to communicate with each other, and you're doing the work. And actually, I was like, I want this. I want to do this, because I really feel like I can make a difference here.
Yeah.
And it was great. It's a great opportunity. I get to work with some great people, and for some of the things we've accomplished in a year is incredible. It's incredible to work for a business and with a CEO that is so on board with this stuff, to the point where Nick will call me and ask me for advice on things, and I'm like, amazing that you're asking me these questions, amazing that you're wanting to get to understand things in a way that I've never seen a CEO before do. He is so on board with it, and actually it's incredible to see how having a CEO that's influencing the business around this conversation makes such a huge impact on the teams in the restaurants. And actually, we're rolling out training for the teams, so the teams better understand what does diversity, equity, inclusion, equality, what does it all actually mean, and actually how do we do better individually and as a business, and how does that impact everyone else? And then looking at how do we communicate with one another, what's acceptable behaviour in the workplace. There's just so many different elements that we're working on.
Yeah.
And I think the goal that we're aiming for is, as a business, we want to be an anti-racist business, because it's really important that, we are a Caribbean-inspired restaurant business. We do not accept racism, and we don't tolerate it. And actually, the only way to really say you don't tolerate it is to be an anti-racist. It's not good enough anymore just going, I'm not racist.
Yeah, it's also not good enough just to stay quiet, right? That's the thing, is just you can't turn your head away and say nothing when you know that there's something wrong.
Yeah, I
That's the
think
key thing for me.
silence is basically complicit, and that's the biggest thing. And I think that's what, when I started at Turtle Bay, it was like, what are you doing? If we're not saying something, just saying quiet, then you're part of the problem. So,
Yeah.
we're working really hard on next year rolling out. We're doing a road show, and we're going out and training all the teams in every restaurant. Every member of staff will get this training on how to be an anti-racist and what it means to be an anti-racist. So that as a business, we can next year say, as a business, we are an anti-racist business. We've all been trained on it. We've all understood it, and we're all here to disrupt racism. And that's, I think that's a really good start and a really good stand as a business for us to do that. And then I also get to work with the marketing team. So my role is kind of split. So I do marketing and I do people. And because I think it's really important that as a brand, we're shouting about the stuff we're doing internally so that people can learn from it. And also that we are connecting with communities, because that's how you then give back to the communities in which that you're serving.
Yeah.
And that was really important for me as coming in as equality and inclusion partner, was that I wanted to make sure that we were partnering up with Black businesses, with charities, where possible. And so we're doing some really amazing work with the likes of Youth Music, who are a music charity for young people from marginalised groups. We're doing some work with UK Black Pride. We're doing some work with the Jamaican Trust. So we're starting to really make some really nice connections and partnerships with communities, and especially Black communities, and giving back to those communities where we can. And we're actually, for the first time, we are sponsoring a truck at Notting Hill Carnival in August, the end of August.
Okay. Is that another lorry with your face on it?
my face will not be on this lorry. Sorry to disappoint everyone.
Gutting.
You might see me floating on the back of a lorry, just shouting and waving with my flag. But yeah, so it's great because this opportunity has given me, so it's allowing me to learn so much from different types of people that I'm connecting with, and also it's nice to be able to see the impact I'm having within the business, even if it's really small. I mean, I'm going into restaurants, and it's really nice to be able to go into the restaurants so much, and I'm in the restaurants 3 times to 4 times a week. And it's nice to be able to go into restaurants and people to be like, "Oh my God, Olajide, it's so good to meet you." Whereas before, when I was the recruitment manager, no one did that. But
oh God, here he comes again. Oh God.
Whereas now people are like excited to see me, and like I've had some conversations with people that have really touched me, and like some of them even brought me to tears. Like I remember walking into a restaurant, and one of the ladies walked up to me and said, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you being here. Like, I can't tell you how impactful and how important it means that you are here representing us as Black people, and also trying to make it a better place for us, for everyone to work in. And I was just like, oh my God, like that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, I completely understand. I can see how that would be a really uplifting kind of gratification for the work that you're doing, that you're actually, you are onto something, you are doing the right thing, you are making the world a better place by shining a light on this subject, and how actually with not much mental change we could all do better. We can all do even incrementally slightly better.
And that's the thing, is what I keep telling people when I go out and talk to companies. I mean, I'm still doing work with SISU as well as Turtle Bay, and which is great because I'm able to still, build my, the business that I want to do, moving forward in the future. And I tell people is that people are like, oh, do you think people are going to change? Do you think this is good? Your workshops are going to be impactful? And I'm like, do you know what? I think if only one person walks out of every workshop and realizes that they've got to make a change, or they walk out of a workshop and realize that they understand the power and privilege and how that plays a part in their life, or they realize that they've got some unconscious bias that they need to work on. If one person does that and impacts another person, and that person then impacts another person, then that's all that matters to me. I think all it takes is for a change in behavior or a change in language for it to be impactful on someone else. And that's the most important thing, is how are we all impacting each other, and how is that all playing a part in well-being and how we all feel at work. And again,
Yeah.
that's the reason why well-being is such a huge part of what I do in my role at Turtle Bay, and also what I do with SISU, because there is such a huge correlation between diversity, inclusion, belonging, and your well-being. If you do not have a sense of belonging at work, you're literally coming into work, spending most of your time there, not feeling like you belong, going home and feeling quite sad and miserable, and sometimes quite alone. And that has such a huge impact on the way that you feel, your mental health, your well-being.
Yeah.
And so it causes it cascades down into your life, and it can lead into such detrimental impact in your life. So it's really important that when you do the work within DNI or ENI, is that you're really bringing in well-being into it, because otherwise there's no point.
I think that's genius, and I want to say simplicity, but that's not the word. But it makes total sense that actually, if you're not feeling like you're included in the conversation, in your place where you go and work, of course that's going to impact your well-being. Of course it is, and I find it brilliant to hear that you're you've created a correlation between the two, because it's massively important. And I think on that list of motivations that I was talking about earlier on, where money is down 5 or 6, the inclusivity element is way up there
Yeah,
as to why somebody would come to work every day, why somebody would give up their time to be in a place that's not their home and kind of trade their time for money, as it were, which is all that work is, really. So if you're feeling like you're included and feeling like you're part of the journey of the organization, then it just makes such a massive, massive difference to how you feel.
it really does. And I must say, I'm not just saying it because I work at Turtle Bay. We are doing some great things around well-being, and it's something that I'm really proud of, because well-being doesn't have an immediate effect on profit and on the bottom line that you can see straight away. It's very hard to quantify how effective something is like well-being, but the fact that Nick and the senior team at Turtle Bay have given me the opportunity to really focus on well-being, because they can see that it does have an impact, and it is really important, and people come first, really means a lot, because we've now invested in having a well-being champion in every restaurant across the country, and each well-being champion has been mental health first aid trained, and each one has also gone through a well-being training program, and they get group therapy sessions as well. And to be able to implement that this year has been, it's not been easy, but also it's been so impactful. And actually, we are seeing the impact of having a champion in a site. And actually, now we're looking at, well, we need to make sure that we get them more. We need to get sure they get support as well. So looking at maybe getting more than one champion in sites, and we're looking at doing that next year. So it's really, and we're actually seeing that is having a huge impact in the team, and the team are really happy that they've got someone in the restaurant that's focused on well-being. And then they're giving me the feedback, so I can then go back to the business and go, right, this is the feedback that's coming from the well-being champions. We need to look at rotoring. We need to look at break rooms and stuff like that. So it's really nice to have some real life feedback from well-being champions within the business, and that's probably one of my proudest things that we've done at Turtle Bay. And I think I would urge people, especially in hospitality, that well-being, it's one of those things where people think they've done the right thing by getting a mental health first aider or getting one or two. But I think when you think about how big some of these businesses are or brands are, you need to think about how many you realistically need, and also what support are you offering those champions or those mental health first aiders, because just saying you've got a mental health first aider and not doing anything else other than just training them isn't really ticking the box in my mind. So it's really about thinking a bit more outside the box, and I'm really glad that we've done that at Turtle Bay.
It's the diversity and inclusion equivalent of greenwashing and sustainability, isn't it? When people just get, we've ticked the box, that's it, we can move on. But actually, the massive part of that is actually all around the consistent action around it. And especially when it comes to mental health, there is no business without a workforce that's engaged and in full mental health capability.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that I can't remember what the stat is, but there is a stat out there around mental health and how much it impacts you on a day-to-day basis, and if you've got poor mental health, what the impact is on the business, and if you've got good mental health, what the impact is. The correlation is really quite huge. And I think one of the things that I've learned is that people want to work for businesses that care about them, that really care about them, that really take the time to make sure that they are looking after their financial health, their mental health, their physical health as a whole, and also that are looking to make sure that they are continuously trying to do better. And I think that's one of the things that, everyone wants to do the right thing, but actually we all say it more than actually we don't want actually making any actions. Like, that's the problem at the moment. So we're all talking about it, but actually how many of us are actually doing something to make the change, and how many people are doing stuff to move the dial? And I think people are, especially young people, are becoming more aware of the fact that there's people out there that are just paying lip service. So I think as a business, it's really important that we start to think about how do you make some tangible changes and how do we adapt, because that's the biggest thing right now is that, hospitality, I've worked in it since I was 15, and it has changed drastically, in the terms of what people expect from a workplace to, what people will not tolerate anymore in a workplace. And I think it's really important that we start to realise that we need to continuously be learning and changing and adapting as the times move on.
Hear, hear. I mean, what a great way to summarize how to live your life. Really, I mean, things change, right? And actually, if you think about what we're talking about now, if more companies critically got behind it and acted on it, then in 5 years' time, we find ourselves in a situation whereby we have one of the greatest industries to work in when it comes to how we look after people when they come into work here. And we don't have a staffing crisis, and we don't have an issue trying to find people, because everybody's chomping at the bit to come and work in an industry that looks after them. Who'd have thought that might make a difference?
I know.
God, it's groundbreaking. Yeah, I know. Wow. But no, I mean, what a cracking journey you've had so far. And what I really kind of love about it is that at the beginning, it feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was almost like, I don't really know what I want to do, but I do know that I enjoy this, so I'm going to pursue that and just see where it takes me. And there wasn't probably a moment in your early career where you woke up and you strategically thought about where you're going and what you wanted to do, but things presented themselves at opportunist moments and you went, that sounds cool, I'm going to do that. And then now, as you've found yourself, as it were, for want of a better phrase, you've found your place, you've found a subject matter which is, absolutely here and now, but also your lived experience is it puts you in such a great position to be able to help people. And that sounds like that's something that really connects with you as a human, actually, your ability to help people and just make people and businesses better.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think it was very clear early on that as much as I love to do nice things and go to nice places and eat nice food and wear nice clothes, I'm not a money-driven person. So working somewhere for money has never been something that drives me, but working somewhere where that wants to make a change and make a difference in people's lives, I realised that, and that's why recruitment was such a passion of mine for such a long time, because I was able to give people an opportunity to get a job that they really wanted to get. And then I realised very quickly that I was getting bored of that, and I needed another motivation. And it was like, you're right, it just all led into each other. And now I feel like I have found my confidence in a way that I didn't think I would ever find this level of confidence, so when I'm so young, where where I feel like, I know what I want to do, I know what I don't want to do, I know who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with. I also know what my values are, I know what I'm willing to do and what I'm willing to not do. So it's really interesting, and I'm really grateful as well, because I think, if I hadn't been for everything that's happened to me and my whole journey, I don't think I would be where I am today. And I think I'm also really grateful for the people I've met along the way, because those people have really shaped who I am today. And a lot of them, I still talk to because they have offered guidance and, I guess, mentorship throughout my journey. And yeah, it's a really nice place to be, because I feel like, Turtle Bay is obviously my main focus right now, but also behind the scenes, SISU is like really starting to pick up, and it's really nice to be able to grow a business that's really grown from the heart, and that's grown
Yeah.
from really putting people at the heart of everything that we do. And I don't, and I'm not. It's not one of those things where I want to rush it and become really big and be making loads of money. It's one of those things that's gradually building, and I love the fact that it's gradually building, and we're building some really great partnerships with some really incredible brands that really want to make a difference, and who really want to invest in this work. And it's great. It's fantastic. I'm beaming from ear to ear.
Yeah, and do you know what? Now I know why it took me 2 years to get you on the show, because I think you needed to do all of this in order for us to have this conversation, rather than doing it when you're at GBK, when all of this hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, totally. And I think what you're doing is fantastic, and I wish you guys all the very best with the next phase of that, and whatever that looks like. Before you go, a couple more questions. I like to ask this of all people. To be fair, you've given us a couple of stories already today, but are there any funny stories from your career that you can share with us?
I've definitely given you one already with the toilet situation.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Lorry. But I don't funny stories. I guess I guess that has to be the funniest. I don't really have any funny stories, unfortunately. I can think
No,
of.
that's fine. I'd actually forgotten that was rather amusing, and the fact that you spoke about your laugh as well. So and the you have got a really infectious laugh.
I think that's probably the funniest thing about my whole career, is that my laugh is well known, and if you ask people about Olajide, or they'll say, "Oh, his laugh is so funny. His laugh is hilarious." Yeah. So there you go. That is the funniest thing that's happened in my career, is my laugh.
Yeah, your laugh. Yeah, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
So that's great. What would be your top 3 reasons for someone to come and join hospitality?
Definitely not the money. No, joking. I would say, if you are looking for somewhere, if you are someone that is looking to find, I don't want to say like a family, because I think family has its own connotations to it, but I think someone that's looking to find a new team or a new experience, hospitality can offer you that. Like, hospitality can offer you many types of people, different types of experiences. That you can be an introvert, you can be an extrovert, and you could really find your voice in hospitality. It gives you an opportunity to meet new people as well. I think, for me, when I didn't quite know who I was or where I wanted to go, it was really nice to come and work in hospitality, because it gave me the opportunity to meet different types of people that would then help me shape who I am now. So that's another reason. And I guess, the food. Like, I have literally been able to experience food on so many different levels, in so many different types of places, because of people I've met who have also experienced different types of food. And yeah, food has been such a huge part of my life. And so if you love food, why not join the hospitality sector, where you can eat food, in different restaurants, in different places around the world, and you can compare, and it's great. Like, I think I've learned so much about how food is cooked, how food should and shouldn't be cooked, how service should be. So now when I go out, I'm a critic. Everywhere I go, I'm critiquing the service, the toilets, the food, the drink, and
the ambience, the lighting,
you critique everything. So you become a food critic. So why not join an industry where you can become your very own food critic?
Yeah. And do you know what? That seems to me like such an obvious one. I think you might be the first person to say that around, because, it's a food-centric industry in kind of whatever way you look at it. And I remember when I first came into the industry on cruise ships, and when I moved into food and beverage, the chef used to try dishes out on us before they would see the light of day, and before they go out to the public. And I think about, how cool was that? Like, as a 24-year-old who knew nothing really about food at the time, to have that experience of being tested by world-class chefs. It's here to that. That's another one going on the list. Excellent stuff. Well, if people want to get a hold of you to learn more about you, just chew the fat, or kind of, I suppose, retain your services with SISU, what would be the best method for them to do that?
I would always say contact me on LinkedIn, Olajide Alabi. I always suggest people, because SISU is, we're not only about providing a service, we're also about educating and sharing knowledge. So if you follow us on Instagram at This Is SISU, or follow us on LinkedIn, we are constantly sharing great content. We've got a thing going on at the moment called our A to Z glossary, because I think language plays such a huge part in terms of knowing what words mean and the impact they might have. So we're doing an A to Z glossary on our social pages. So it's a great thing for you if you want to learn new stuff every week.
Do you know what I like about that as well? Is that a lot of A to Zs are one word within the A, one word within B, and so on and so forth. But you've got lots and lots of words associated with each letter.
Yeah.
And you're only on D so far, I think. So you've got a long way to go.
I'm not going to lie, it's hard to the words, but basically what we've done is we've divided it into the non-protected characteristics of the Equalities Act, and we are doing words A for each protected characteristic, and a B for each protected characteristic. So it's like it's in that format at the moment.
Yeah.
And so you learn so much, because it's really important that we understand language. So yeah, follow us on socials and follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and then if you want to contact us, visit our website. It's www.thisisisu.co.uk, and yeah, we've got all our contact information on there. But yeah, you can find me in many places.
Fantastic. Yeah, good man. Well, I just want to kind of, first of all, thank you. I'm glad we were able to do this in the end, and I'm comfortable that it took 2 years for a reason. But I kind of wanted to end because I read an article that you had published before, and it was a wonderful opening line that I made a note of that I thought just sums up how we can all kind of win, really, in humanity. And I know that's deep, but I do like deep, so that's fine. No one has ever made themselves great by showing how small someone else is. I thought it's such a wonderfully simple line that it needs some light of day. So I congratulate you for writing that. I don't mind if you got inspiration from somewhere else to come out with that. I think it's a great line to say to the world, come on, just look after your own behaviour before you start criticising somebody else's.
Absolutely. It's so powerful. I mean, even when you read it out just now, I'm just thinking, God, I need to start saying that more often, because it is such a powerful statement to make. And actually, you then realise, I could probably do better.
I think we always can, though, right? I mean, I think as long as you're trying to do the best you can, and as long as I think I made a note as we were talking, actually, there's quite a lot of self-reflection in your journey. Actually, the ability to self-reflect, I think, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, because in any moment where you act on something or you behave in a certain way, we're human. We're never going to get it right 100% of the time. But as long as you can reflect and go, do you know what? I could have handled that way better. And because of that, I'm going to act that way going forward. Or because of that, I'm going to go and speak to that person about the way I acted and apologize, or say, sorry, I could have done that better, or whatever. If you have the ability to self-reflect on any moment, I think that's called emotional intelligence, basically, the awareness of yourself, is that, we would all we'd make mistakes, but we'd get around them a lot quicker.
Yeah, we really would. We really, really would. That's such a, well, who knew?
God, this is turning into a philosophical podcast today, isn't it?
Who knew? Can't wait to listen to this podcast. It's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it'll be out there now for the end of time, so people can self-reflect on this all the way through. But no, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to chat through your journey, and I wish you all the very best with everything that you've got going on, and long may you continue to make the impact that you're making.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I really hope that, people that are out there listening to this, if they, really want to make a change or want to learn more, just it all starts with a conversation. That's what I always say. It all starts with a conversation.
Absolutely. Good man. Thanks so much, Olajide.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. And there we have it. What a cracking story so far from Olajide, but equally what fantastic work he's doing around equality and wellbeing, highlighting we can all do more to help. I'll be back on Friday this week as I sneak in a special bonus episode that you won't want to miss. But until then, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you then.